I feel like I look really hot right now. I'm gonna move this way because I like this angle way better. You can see the shelves. So wonderful. Hello everyone! This review is several months late. I would like to apologize to Mia there for keeping you waiting, but I had the opportunity to read Jerkbait by Mia Siegert. Siegert? I really should have asked her when I met her at BEA. There's no excuse. This book came out in I think April or May. I got this advanced copy of it. I read it a while ago, but I just kept putting off this review and putting off this review and putting off this review. Which is so dumb because I really enjoyed this book, so I'm finally getting around to it. I'm so sorry. Here I am. Let's talk about this book. So this book follows a pair of twins, Robbie and Tristan. Oh, I remembered, that was so great. Robbie's an NHL player for his school, so he's super sporty and jock-like. Tristan is more subdued and quiet and doesn't really do sports. One day, Robbie tries to kill himself, and so Tristan's parents put him up to the task of living in the same room as him, monitoring him at school, basically becoming his caretaker to ensure that his brother doesn't hurt himself because his NHL prospects are just so grand that he can't risk not getting a scholarship or not getting that fame. The fun thing about this book is that it plays around with LGBT in sports, and it also plays around with straight guys who are into musicals, so definitely a lot of gender stereotypes and sexuality stereotypes being thrown around and chopped up. Overall, I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was really good, and let's talk about it now. So first I want to talk about our two main-ish characters, which are Robbie and Tristan. I loved both of them together and individually, which I think is one of the most important things about the book. Tristan is the person who tells the story, and I just love him so much because I'm a sucker for wallflower characters that are quiet and they just watch the events unfolding. They add their inner monologue to it, but they're not like super involved in what's going on. So like The Great Gatsby, love it. This book, love it. I think from this perspective, Tristan had a lot to witness, so it was very interesting. So if you think you might have been bored by that, don't fear. It was actually really good. Robbie was just so great. I loved him as well. He seemed very real and really fleshed out, and the struggles he went through were really heart-wrenching, and you were there with him as he was feeling things, even though you were watching it from Tristan's point of view. The love between the brothers was just so refreshing and touching that I loved reading about them, even the parts where they weren't necessarily the best of friends, since obviously having to move in with your sibling and like be with them constantly might be a little bit of a hair-pulling situation. The teamwork and the brotherly love is so great to read about, and I don't have a brother, and my sister that I do have and I aren't like the closest, so I just thought it was really heartwarming. I love the story of these two. It's not necessarily like a love book like most contemporaries are. It's not like Robbie meets this girl and then she makes him all better again. It's about this family bond of just like recovery, and I thought it was done really cleanly and really great. But the huge thing that I applaud in this book is that I think it is probably one of the, if not the most, I probably shouldn't say that, one of the most realistically written books about high school I have ever read. From the dialogue to the actual events that occur, everything was just done so that it felt like I was there. There's so many books that I read that I'm like, ugh, that's cliche, ugh, no one would ever say that, ugh, we don't actually do that in high school. But this one was so believable, and I felt like I was there, and it's such an authentic telling of brotherhood and sports and high school drama, and none of it feels cliche or overdone like most contemporary books I read do. The only exception to that, however, is the ending of this book, where I felt like it did get a little bit unrealistic and weird. The action in the very end where the climax occurs is sort of random compared to what occurs in the rest of the book. Like, I feel like there was a part of the story that could have been fleshed out better in order for that ending to have more of an impact, so that I felt the ending could have been built up to better, but I still enjoyed the way it ended, and the falling action that we had and the final love between the brothers was just so, again, touching. This book was just such a breath of fresh air because it plays around with gender stereotypes and homophobia. There's even a small commentary on racism in there. I think the parents in this book are what caused most of that to occur. It was so interesting not only to read about it from Tristan's point of view, but to see how these boys handle it. The author handles it super well. She knows how to talk about these rough issues that affect so many teens. Like I said, I met her at BEA and she's just so sweet and nice. I really enjoyed her book. I thought it just offered so many great points, that it was really realistic and well done. So because I loved her and the book so much, I asked if she wanted to do an interview. So now I will transition to the interview questions that I've prepared for her and her answers. I will link down below where you can find this. Until next time, I hope you all enjoy the interview that I have for you. Let's switch to that. Goodbye. Hope you enjoy the interview.
The decision to have Tristan be the narrator came from the fact that a lot of people are outsiders and don't know when to step in. For having the decision to see it through Tristan's eyes and then witness what it is as a person who feels powerless, who actually does have the ability to do a little bit more than he does. It just made it natural that that was my decision. There's also not a lot of novels that I've read where we get the perspective from the outsider. The novel started out as a semi-autobiographical piece. Originally, I was Tristan, and Heather was my former best friend. As the story progressed, it became really its own element. So, although there's a few things that remain the same, it's mostly different. It's not my story anymore. It's the character's story, which is probably better because they're a lot more interesting than me. In terms of tips on unrealistic characters, oh geez, that's hard. I've spent a lot of my life watching people. I've kind of felt like an outsider. So I would say really, if you want to write these realistic characters and scenarios, think back to your experience a little bit, take it from there, and also watch as many people as possible. Just go people watching. Watch a lot of shows. I love watching documentaries in general too. I think you can learn a lot about a person from a documentary. If you are a teenager and you are in a position where you cannot follow your dreams, there's a few steps that you can do. Number one, if you're in high school, see the guidance counselor. I can't stress how important that is. It's free. That's their job. Talk with them. Talk with someone. It's absolutely critical. I would also try to talk with your parents again and again. Sometimes it's not going to work. But sometimes if you talk about it and then try to explain it from different angles, it helps out. Fortunately, there's a lot of online groups that are fantastic and really wonderful support groups. Though it sounds cheesy, it does get better. Maybe you're not able to do things at your schedule. Maybe there's some things that won't happen. It's not saying that it's discouraging that, but mental health is most important. And if you really do want to do something, there's no time limit unless you're trying to say, okay, I want to make the Olympics in a sport where, your career's basically done by 20. But other jobs, you can do it later on. Just really do it for you and just hang in there as best as you can, but make sure you take advantage of the guidance counselor. I can't stress that enough. That's the most helpful. Until recently, I would have said Tristan because it was a semi-autobiographical novel originally, and Tristan was me. But as the novel went through several changes, I realized there's a lot more of me in Robbie. Probably the drive to do that competitive drive, the need to do this, the need to be a professional, the need to do that at such a young age. I see a little bit of myself in both of them. Fortunately, it's not fully semi-autobiographical anymore, so I'm not a character. Hooray! This is going to sound silly and ridiculous and all of the above. Maybe because I came from a different genre. I studied literary fiction, like exclusively. That was what I did. I did really experimental literary fiction. I went to Goddard, where I worked with Rebecca Brown, Douglas A. Martin, John McManus, who are some of the most prominent LGBTQ authors in the world. When I worked with them, all the books that I read were really what I wanted to do. It included diversity, whether it's LGBTQ themes, racial, disability, all those different facets they added together. It was sort of strange because when I went to young adult, I didn't realize how much of a problem there was. I wrote a book that included diversity because that's what I believe in. I lived in a rural area for a long period of time and I so did not belong. And I sympathized and it hurt when I would go and I would see, racism. Being in a school like that during September 11th and then having the one kid from Afghanistan in your class and then seeing the police constantly monitoring his house, him always being called a terrorist, which of course is a little different than here. When I found out about the We Need Diverse Books movement, I thought it was just incredible and I jumped on that. If you go and see something that I write, it will be pretty inclusive. It'll go across the boards because that's natural for me and I do think that there's a huge need for it. What I want people to write about diversity because that's what's real. I have to kind of divide it a little bit into two audiences, and also whatever you feel. If you're a teen, to know that your mental health is most important, without question. It's more important than sports. It's more important than getting drafted. Speak with a guidance counselor. Speak with anyone that you can. There will be someone that can listen. Even use, the online forums, but speak with someone. For parents that read this book, back off. And that's really hard. That comes off as very abrasive. You need to realize if your kid is doing a sport or anything, that their mental health is most important. This could apply for college. Mental health is more important than all of the stress with the SATs. Let your teen be a teen. Let them hang out with their friends. Let them have fun. Go and work with them. If you start noticing warning signs, don't pretend nothing's there. Speak with them. Bring your kid to a therapist. If you can't afford it, there's a lot of free therapy. Listen to your kid. Your child is more important than living out a fantasy that you might not have been able to fulfill. And then here's the, conflicting information. When you back off, make sure that you're still in the loop to make sure your kid's safe. But if someone brings up a problem, instead of trying to take something away, like the internet, just give it to them. Just go and say, I appreciate it. Talk about it. If your teen talks with you about depression or suicide, immediately get help. That's not the opportunity to sit back. Just be proactive, do it. Those are the most important things for people to get out of the book, which of course is a total downer. For something positive to get out of the book, yay, brothers who didn't like each other, who now like each other, and it's awesome. I guess that was a little more intense than I meant it to be. Sorry about that. Oh boy. A lot of people ask me what my favorite musical is. To say I don't know is actually accurate. Most people would say, well, your favorite musical is Cats. I'm sure a lot of people know, and if you don't now, you get to learn now. I make costumes for the musical Cats. I love Cats. I like Phantom of the Opera. I like Jesus Christ Superstar. I don't like most of the other Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, but I know that those are, three up there that I really like for different reasons. I love The Book of Mormon. The Drowsy Chaperone is the most underrated show of all time. It is hysterical. There's also Heathers the musical, which is amazing, and it is so much fun. But I can't even think on the spot. Silence the musical. That has to be my favorite. It is the unauthorized parody musical of The Silence of the Lambs. It is wrong, it is raunchy, it is filthy, and I love it. Elizabeth, that's a really, really good one. And Rebecca, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. But those would definitely be really, really good picks. Ones that I love, that they're so good. I'm not huge into Hamilton, which is probably going to go and shock and mortify all of you. Bonnie and Clyde, how did I not mention Bonnie and Clyde? Oh my gosh. Temps de Vampire, that one is really, really, really good. I'm sorry, I'm getting really hyper because I really love talking about it. Company is excellent. I actually like Titanic the musical. And I know that people are going to be like, that was the worst musical out there, but I liked it, and it was my first Broadway show, so leave me alone about that. Did I just go on for like 10 minutes or something about this? It's really crazy. This was a dangerous question to ask me, so I go and I blame you, Whitney, entirely.